For now, I'm going to go in and delete these couple entries that I added, not needing those. Let's go back to the extensions. We still haven't talked about any sort of calls, call scenarios as far as your incoming calls. All right, so for that, let's start at interfaces. And the simplest call that you can have is that of a call on your FXO ports. So I click FXO. This is a QX200. I have 4 FXO ports. And I could click on any one of these and define what happens on that incoming call. So first of all, I can define whether it's incoming and outgoing. And I receive a call, which extension am I going to ring? I can also route the FXO call to an entry or pattern in my call routing table. The reason I use the word pattern is because I can even have a pattern of say like a word, like the word incoming. And I can create a matching pattern using the word incoming in my call routing table. So this is, why would I want to do this? Maybe instead of going to a specific extension right away, maybe I want to put some time frames around it. Maybe incoming calls during the day, they're going to ring to a group of extensions. After hours, it goes to after hours auto attendant. The only place in the system where I can define those scheduling parameters and options is going to be in the call routing table. So instead of going directly to some extension, I may want to divert the call first to the call routing table. All right, and then here you can put in this is just a text box for description only. You just put in the phone number for reference. So you'll know that on FXO number 1, this is the phone number if I want to make a test call. You come back to that office 3 months from now, you'll know what that number is. Very easy. That's so incoming FXO calls. That's easy to define and easy to see how those work. All right. Next, we want to get into is the SIP trunking. Excuse me. Just had to get a water break. All right. So when we talk about SIP trunks, if you're not familiar with them, you're going to sign up with a service, an ITSP, Internet Telephony Service Provider, that offers the SIP trunks. They all have different packages that they offer. Maybe it's based on the number of simultaneous calls. It comes with X amount of with that package comes with X amount of minutes, North American minutes within the continental U.S. or maybe they're selling their service based on the number of DIDs. Different options. There's different ways of maybe that they don't. They'll charge you just a little bit for each DID, and then they're going to charge you a rate based on for each minute. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways that they sell their services, and you just have to look at each one of them. A lot of ITSPs out there. We've worked with hundreds of them over the years, literally hundreds. And a few of them we've listed here in our configuration wizard that you'll see here in a moment. Just maybe some marketing purposes or for whatever reason, we've added a few of these. And if they're not listed, they should all work. I've yet to find one that doesn't work with our system. All right, so let's talk about the service though. When you get sign up with their service with the SIP trunk, you're going to get an account and you're going to get a DID. A DID is simply a 10-digit phone number, and you might have several DIDs with them. Okay. But when you get a call to one of those DIDs, they need to know where to send the call to. So it's going to go across an IP connection across the internet, and they need to know where, of all the IPs in the world, where to send that call to, that DID. where's your device located? And so they'll need to know that. So there's two ways of identifying your IP address. One is they're going to simply ask you when you go to configure your account with them. They're going to say, all right, what's your IP address? And you're going to, that means that you need to have a static public IP address that's assigned. It's going to be used for the SIP trunk. All right. Another method would be based on registration, just in the same way that the IP phones register to the system, and then when they register, that's how we're able to identify the IP address, and we can place the calls to those phones. The same thing would happen with the SIP trunk provider. When you register, you can register to their service, and they're going to give you a username and a password, and every hour you're going to need to register to them. All right, so that's so you're going to use one method or the other, but either way, we've got a configuration wizard that's going to help you configure those that account. Okay, so let's go to telephony and VoIP carrier, and you choose the ITSP. So there's, as I mentioned, there's quite a few listed that we've added here. If they're not listed, it's not a big deal. Just choose manual. The only thing that's going to gain you if one of those is already pre-listed is already going to predefine the next page, the server settings. All right, and then you need to define whether they're going to, the service will be based on the IP address where they actually send all the calls to your IP, or if you're going to authenticate to them using the account username and password. So let's use the second method where we're going to register to them. Okay, so we're going to use an account. We'll just refer to it as test_ITSP, put in the password that they gave you, and their SIP server. It'll be either the domain or it could be an actual IP address, the port number, typically 5060. And then over on the right-hand side, you'll see the RTP proxy option. I would enable that one. The other settings aren't needed unless they specifically tell you so. Maybe they've got an alternative SIP server that they use. Click Next. And this is the how you're going to place a call, outbound call to that SIP trunk, whether you're going to dial by prefix, in which case it'd be the digit 9, or maybe it would be with a pattern where you pick up the phone and you dial, pick up the phone and dial 10 digits. Each digit's represented by a question mark, a single question mark. All right, in this case, let's do the digit 9. Emergency code, if I'm going to use it for 911. Maybe incoming calls to this main account. I want them to go to the auto tenant and fail over to the PSTN on my FXO ports. Click Next, Finish. Okay, it creates the account for me. All right, so if I go the extensions management table, it's going to do a couple things for me. The first thing it'll create an extension. In this case, extension 999. It's a virtual extension, it has no phone assigned to it. And it even tells you it was created by the VoIP voice over IP carrier wizard, and you can see the account. So let's look at the admin settings. We'll see the settings that were configured. And so you've got the username, test_ITSP. There's the password that I entered. There's the IP address, and it will periodically go off and register to that service. Obviously, this is fictitious. It doesn't exist. So I'm going to turn that registration off. But currently, it would be trying to go out and register and trying to validate to their service. All right, if it was successful and it did register, okay, at that point you get an incoming call for the DID, and they're going to send that call to your office because now they know what your IP address is. Now, when that call arrives, we're going to check. We're going to do two things. First thing we'll do is check this extensions management table. We're going to try to find the DID that they're trying to reach. So in this case, it's going to start right here at the top of the list, and it's going to go through this SIP address field, and it's going to check every extension until it finds that DID. In this case, I've got a DID listed, 491, the 352. Actually, that's the account. It's not the actual DID, but so it would try to find that DID. Let's go into the say extension 103. That's the extension we've been playing with. Go in admin settings, SIP settings, and here I could actually put the DID number, the actual DID number, say like 972-692-1166, and save it. So this is a place for either the username or the account name or the actual DID number. And by the way, you need to know exactly how they're sending you that DID. Maybe they've got a 1. They're sending you 1 plus 10 digits. If it's in an EIN format, there'll be a +1 in front of it, which is we're using flow route, and that's actually the way that they're sending that to me, as you'll see here in a moment. All right, so I put in the 10-digit phone number and save it. Okay, I go back to my extensions management, and you can see the DIDs listed. So it starts at the top of the table, finds that DID, finds a match, it rings the extension that it's assigned to. It's that simple. Okay, just assign the DID to the extension, and it'll ring the extension. Okay, if it gets to the bottom of the table and it still has not found the DID, at that point it's going to go to the call routing table. Okay, and so let's take a look and jump into the call routing table. It's a great chance to branch off. We'll look at the call routing table. So we go to telephony, and at the top we click on call routing. All right, so you can see some entries in here. So this is what I would call pretty much the heart of the system, the call routing table. Anytime the user picks up the phone, dial some digits. Those digits will be sent all at once, all together. They're going to be sent to the QX, and the QX is going to try to find a matching entry in the call routing table to try to figure out what to do with the digits that it just received. Okay, and those, let's look at some of the entries here. So let's say in the layout of this table. So you've got the some entries. I've got 15 entries created. I could put a check beside one of these entries. I can disable the entry. I can add a new entry. I can edit the entry. I can duplicate an entry, which makes for saves some keystrokes from entering a duplicate. Maybe I've got similar information, several DIDs. I can quickly add those by just duplicating the entries. I can delete an entry, and again, the order in which these entries are listed may or may not be significant based on the digits that were received. So I can position the entry, and it will use the first matching entry that it finds. So I can move it up, move it down, or maybe move it to a specific location within the table. All right, so and then I've got the different patterns. So here I've got entry number 1. It says the user dial with an 8 and a star. I'm going to enlarge this just a little bit so you can hopefully see it a little better. Okay, so the user dial with an 8, and then there's a wildcard or a star after that. So first digit was an 8. The digits after that, we don't care. They could have dialed 2 digits, 3 digits, 10, 20 digits. We don't care. It's a wildcard. Then the destination pattern modification. This is number, NDS stands for the number of discarded symbols. Okay, it's a quantity. It's basically how many digits. The reason it's called symbols is because we're dealing with SIP. SIP can be alphanumeric. It can have letters and digits, and typically you're only going to be working with digits, so just think of it as number of digits to delete. How many? We're going to delete 1, and that's the digit 8, which is the access code. And with the digits remaining, we're going to place an outbound SIP call to where? To sip.epygi.com. Epygi maintains a SIP server. You can place a call to our main office by dialing 820530. That's the auto tenant, and we use it for internal dialing. You can also create extensions that will use our SIP server, and you can place calls to those. The limitation is that you can't use our SIP server. It doesn't have any external outside access to the PSTN. So it's somewhat limited, but it's useful for test calling. I use it a lot. All right, I have people can call me directly to my SIP number. All right, there's a let's look at some of these other entries. Entry number 2 is very specific. The user picked up the phone, dialed a 2-digit number, and with those digits, we're going to try to ring some extension in the office. Okay, next one is a 3-digit number. So the user picks up the phone and dials a 3-digit extension. So if you were to add some new extensions and you're using 4-digit extensions, well, they wouldn't work. Okay, initially they're not going to work because there's no matching call routing entry to allow you to place a call to those digits. What would happen is you'd pick up the phone and dial that 4-digit extension, and you'd hear a message. It's very distinct. It would say the number dialed doesn't exist. It's basically telling you that you dial some digits that there's no matching pattern. So you just come in here, no big deal. You just go in here and add a new entry for those 4-digit extensions. Entry 4, you're dialing 00 to the auto tenant. All right, entry number 5. This is a call out on my SIP trunk. I'm using flow route. Been doing so for about a month and a half, 2 months now. It's been working real well. Real pleased with their service. So we've been using them, and here's the account that's configured. So I pick up the phone, I dial 10 digits, very specific. To those 10 digits, I add the digit 1, because when I send a call onto flow route, they want to see 1 plus 10 digits. And it's an IP to PSTN call, which is a SIP call out to sip.flowroute.com. All right. Over here on you see 2 columns, the source number pattern and the source type. First of all, the source type, this is probably the single most important thing you can get out of the call today. All right, the source type is your best protection mechanism from somebody externally being able to originate a call through your office. But this is telling us is that you as the source or the originator of the call, if you're going to use this call routing entry to place an outbound call dialing 10 digits to flow route, and that's the entry you want to use, you can't use that entry, you can't place that call unless you are an extension within the PBX. You're a valid extension on the PBX. All right. And this column here basically says which extension. We don't care. We put a wildcard. I could put extension 103 in there if I wanted. But I'm also going to modify the caller ID. This is where I got an outbound modified caller ID. So I'm going to delete, again, NDS, number of discarded digits. How many digits in a caller ID? It doesn't matter. I'm going to delete all of them with 99 digits. I'm going to replace the caller ID since I deleted it. I'm going to replace it with my main number and the name Epygi. All right, and if for some reason I make that outbound call to flow route and they're not working, my internet's down, whatever it is, if for any reason, this failover reason is set to any, if for any reason that call fails, it's going to take the same set of matching digits, 10 digits, and it's going to try to place an outbound call on one of my FXO ports. So very easily I've configured a first choice, second choice call routing. All right, let's just look at a couple other entries while we're here. The user picks up the phone and dials an access code of 55, just arbitrary number. It's just what I used. You can find anything you want there, but 55 and 3 digits, which is an extension. I'm going to delete the 55 and I'm going to place a call directly to the voicemail box of the extension. So if I dial 55103, I'm going to end up in the voicemail box of that extension 103. This next entry, very similar, but I dial 56, and this is going to allow me to place an intercom to that same extension. An intercom within our system refers to a one extension calling directly to another extension, and when you do an intercom call, the extension that you called, it's going to be an auto answer scenario where automatically it answers, the microphone and the speaker immediately go off hook. All right, so the next entry number 9, is an incoming call to one of my DIDs coming from FlowRoute. Again, you can see, remember I mentioned that if first thing we do is check the extensions management table. If we don't find the extension or the DID in the extensions management table assigned to one of the extensions, that's the first option. The second option would be to check the call routing table to see if it finds a matching pattern here. In this case, it does. It finds dialed this number. They present the call to us with a +1 in front of it. +1 and 10 digits. That's the EIN format. So what I need to do is I need to delete all 12 characters, including the plus sign. I deleted all those digits of the DID, and I replaced it with 100, which is the extension that I want to call. So an incoming call to this DID is going to ring directly to the extension 100. All right, I've got some other test entries that have entry number 10, 11 are test entries for me. Entries number 12, 13, 14, 15, these were all created when we did the voice over IP carrier wizard. Remember we said we're going to dial the digit 9. We created the account. When I dial 9 plus 10 digits, it finds the entry, it deletes the 9, and it makes a IP to PSTN call to the IP address that I specified. Again, you notice that we create that entry in the PBX. The source type is set to PBX, so only extensions in the PBX can use that call routing entry. And if for any reason that call fails, it makes a call out on one of my FXO ports. And then you have the same thing here for dialing 911. So it also places a call to 911 and with first choice out on a SIP trunk, second choice on the FXOs. Okay, let's do an edit on one of these entries. Let's take a look at the outbound SIP trunk. So I can do an edit by simply putting a check beside here and at the top do an edit, or we've given you a shortcut. And sometimes this you get this table, and the table could be, I've seen a table, some of these tables are quite long. Generally for your customer, most customers are going to have not that many entries, maybe 10 at the most. But you can click on this little icon here. It says modify call routing. So it's a shortcut. And go ahead and click on it, and it will take me there. All right, so what we're going to do is okay, so there we go. So here's the pattern. Let me bring this table down a little bit so you can see all the entries. Okay, so so you've got the pattern. This is the digits dialed. There's 10 question marks, one for each digit. This is a great place, by the way, for your help page. It'll tell you all your wildcards that you can use. It gives you examples of some call routing entries. You can have a range of digits. So you can actually put, say your DIDs. You can put a range of DIDs in there, range of extensions. In this case, it's very specific. The user picked up the phone and dialed 10 digits. And I don't delete any digits, but I want to add a 1 in front of it to what they dial. Okay, let's say the user picked up the phone and they know it's a long distance call. So in that case, they dial the 1 plus 10 digits. I don't need to add the 1. They've already dialed the 1. So that would, I just allow the call to proceed. Another example, let's say you're still in an area where you can do 7-digit dialing. The user picks up the phone, they dial 7 digits. You don't want to delete anything, but instead you want to add the 1 plus the local area code. Let's say it's 214 area code. User dials 7 digits, you add the 1 plus 214 and let the call proceed. So you can let the user dial whatever they want, and you just got to use your, this is the digits that they dialed, and then you can modify, add, or delete digits accordingly. All right. The call type is, if you go into another extension, it's PBX, direct to the voicemail box, an intercom call. SIP call and IP to PSTN are very similar. SIP tunnel, where maybe that's a call to another office where you've got a SIP tunnel created, and then you can make an FXO call. All right, so let's leave it, actually let's leave it at IP to PSTN. And you just go next, it steps through. Here's your destination, where the call is going to go. Could be an IP address, could be the domain name, port 5060. All right, and then use extension settings. When we originate that call to the ITSP, they're not going to blindly allow that call to proceed, even though your IP address might be correct. They may if they're validating based on the IP address, but more often than not, they're going to challenge the call. They're going to request for authentication, in which case you need to provide a username and password to them and for the account, in which case you can put it right here, username and password, or you can, maybe I've already got that username and password defined because I've already registered to them, and that's my case here. Is I've already got an account, it's already defined, it's on extension 996, it has a username and password on it, and so that's what this use extension settings is for. I can restrict the number of simultaneous calls. I can use proxy, RTP proxy on that call. All right, here's the source number pattern. I can restrict that entry to only be used by certain extensions, say 103, but most cases, more often than not, you're just going to put a wildcard. I'm allowing that call to be used by any extension in the office. Again, your source type, this is where the call originated from, and as I said earlier, this is your most important entry. Your source type is PBX, which means originated from an extension on the system. Caller ID modification, I'm going to delete the existing caller ID. Maybe it only has an extension on it or something, but I'm going to delete the existing caller ID and replace it. If I delete all the caller ID, I'm going to have to replace it with something. I'm going to replace it with our main phone number and the display name Epygi. All right, and then you have to confirm your settings. I'm not going to change it because I don't need to. All right. I can also, we've also added we got a new enhancement coming up in the next release that a lot of people have been asking for. So let's use our 911 example. So this is a good place for it. And I have it, it's available on this release that I'm testing. It's called Call Alerts. Okay, so for you on the call today, you get to see the new option and what will be available in the next release. The call alert will, there's a new page here's your call alert settings, that when you place a call using this call routing entry, I can send out an alert notice. As you can imagine, somebody dials 911, they call this number, maybe they're from a hotel, located at a hotel or an office or wherever it is. People need to be notified that, hey, somebody dialed 911 because there's rescue vehicles going to be showing up here at the office and within the next 6 minutes. All right, so you can generate a system event log to notify you, and that event log can actually go out to a text or an email. I can also send a notification via email, and so you can put an email account in here. You can separate them by commas. So it could be you can receive an email, and several people can be notified. All right. Not the best of options because this is a real-time event. People aren't always checking their email, but you can have it on a distribution where it goes to an email that goes to it goes out to many email accounts. Okay. Next would be send a notification via an SMS, so people can get notifications on their cell phone. So you can have like 4 or 5 different cell phone numbers here that they get a text message, and it's going to tell you which extension dialed the 911, where the call originated from. And lastly, the update here that we just added is, and you can see down here, you can see extension. This is a voicemail. So it actually will create a voicemail, and in that voicemail it'll say emergency call dialed, or 911 was dialed from extension, and it'll provide the extension number that dialed that number. Okay, so you can list the extensions, separate them by a comma, so it can go out to several extensions, and and one of those extensions can also be the general voicemail box for the office, and then anybody with that general, maybe it's a special general voicemail box just for 911, and you can assign that key to a phone, so that now when a message, someone dials 911, you get a message into that specific voicemail box. The key on the phone can be lit, and that key can be labeled 911 call, and you play the message, and then it'll announce where the call originated from. Okay, so that's an enhancement. All right, something to look forward to. And you can also put these on a schedule. So let's say a time and date. I've got incoming calls to this DID number. It's going to ring extension 100, but it's only going to do so maybe during the day. After hours, you want it to go someplace else. So what we could do is put a check beside it. We're going to duplicate the entry, and maybe I want it to go after hours. I want it to go to 00. Okay, so I want to organize these a little bit better, so I'm going to move this entry up so that it's right after entry number 9. So I can move it to where? Move it before entry number 10. All right, an incoming call comes in for this DID. It finds the first matching pattern, in which case it's going to dial extension 100. But we only want that to happen during the day. So let's change this entry, and you see the checkbox over here says date and time settings. So by using the date and time settings, I click through, and then I'm going to get a new page. So maybe I want this to occur Monday through Friday. Maybe I want it to occur from 8 a.m. to 1700, let's say. Okay, so from there you go, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Okay, so I've got this entry. It's on a schedule, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You have that time time frame is valid, it'll ring extension 100. Outside that time frame, it's going to ring to fall through and ring to 00. So very easily, I've created a schedule. You can also use at the top here, we've got a, you can create schedules, take advantage of this and assign a schedule ID. And you can even put the schedule ID, instead of creating a defined schedule, I could put one that's much more granular, certain hours of the day, time frames, and everything else. And I can even have this schedule ID assigned to a key on the phone. The user can control and activate that schedule. Let's say they leave early on a Friday, they can go ahead and activate the after hours by pressing the key. So they can turn it on, turn it off, or put it back to where it's running on its normal schedule. And I could put holidays during the year and things like that. All right, so that's pretty much the call routing table. That's all we want to go through there.